Welcome to another edition of George Washington Speaks. I'm your host, Tom Saffold. In this edition of George Washington Speaks, we will hear the advice that an older brother gives to a 19-year-old young man who's destined to become the future president of the United States 36 years later.
A month after my recuperation, Lawrence sent me back to Virginia, while he traveled to Bermuda right before Christmas. His hope was that the change of location might ease his coughing. On my 6-week voyage back home, I spent Christmas on the boat with the officers and crew. It was a very lonely time for me, since I was separated from my family and the gaiety that surrounded the Christmas season, which was normally the highlight of my year. Along with tuberculosis and smallpox, there were other diseases that regularly plagued the colonies and that had no good treatments. The more deadly diseases, such as malaria, typhoid, and yellow fever, regularly took large portions of society away. Like many young men, I contracted mumps, malaria, typhoid fever, and debilitating influenza. Fortunately, I never contracted yellow fever that killed so many colonists, especially in Philadelphia. In my own case, I was doused with quinine so many times for my recurring malaria that I believe much of my hearing loss was due to that treatment. By the time I left the presidency at age 65, I was nearly deaf. Lawrence spent a couple more months in Bermuda, but his coughing spasms became worse. It became obvious to him that there would be no cure for him, and that it was only a matter of time before he perished. So he sailed home to Virginia in June 1752, finalized his will, and spent time with me and those closest to him. He died a few weeks later, in July at age 34. Lawrence had always been a great encourager to me, and as I got older, he would often tell me about the strengths he saw in me. But as a good brother, he would also point out the character weaknesses that he and Colonel Fairfax had observed in me. Lawrence commended me as the eldest of 6 children on my hard work around the farm, my loyalty to the family, my fairness with my younger brothers and sisters, and on my honesty with them all. As a young adult, he emphasized my trustworthiness, decency, and reliability. As a young man, both he and Colonel Fairfax commented on my courage, strength, and leadership abilities. Since they felt that people would naturally look up to me to lead them, they also warned me about, some of my weaknesses. They felt that those shortcomings would greatly hinder my ability to be a good leader, or if the opportunity ever presented itself, possibly a great leader. They pointed out that I would often get angry with my younger siblings and their friends when they were being too unruly, or when things didn't go as I planned, or when they did not do exactly what I told them to do. They advised me that when I got frustrated or impatient, that it would be more helpful if I attempted to help them succeed than to be critical of them. As a result of their carrying criticisms of me, I made it a point to try to control my temper and help and encourage those younger than me to develop a more mature and encouraging character. In the weeks before his death, Lawrence strongly urged me to do what Washington's had done before me. They had put service to both the Virginia colony and the king before their own family or even their own individual ambitions. He then pressed me to take his place and serve as a Virginia militia officer, serve as a vestryman in the Anglican Church, and serve as an elected representative in the House of Burgesses. He also indicated that I should be available for any other positions that the people of the colony might call me to serve. I acknowledged his confidence in me and indicated that I would pursue those things, but neither of us fully realized where that would lead me. I followed Lawrence's advice, and at age 20 I asked Virginia Governor Robert Dinwiddie to appoint me to be the Adjutant General of Northern Virginia, the position which Lawrence had occupied in the Virginia militia. However, Governor Dinwiddie divided the large area into 4 separate sections and appointed me to lead only one of the 4. Eventually, I also became a vestryman and a burgess. What neither Lawrence or I could have foreseen is my unanimous appointment as the Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army and my unanimous election as the first President of the United States.
Hard work, loyalty, fairness, and honesty ties a family together, and trustworthiness, decency, and reliability develops a young man. Courage and strength are essential for all leaders, but frustration, impatience, anger, and lack of self-control cloud judgment and the decision-making process of a good leader, which ultimately separates them from becoming a great leader. Join us next time for Mount Vernon, Washington's home, when we follow how Washington's beloved Mount Vernon became his home after traveled from his brother Lawrence through 2 other owners and then to George.